legume production. This is the second joint webinar between two Eurasian initiatives, VALERECO, which focuses on valorizing legumes for agroecological transitions, and GOOD, which explores weed management through agroecological principles across Europe. Today, we're going to move beyond weed control to look in the broader picture on how legumes contribute as ecosystem services providers, supporting pollinators, improving soil health, and building resilience in our farming systems. We will hear perspectives across Europe, including Italy, Greece, Portugal, and other countries as well, bringing together field results and cross-project insights that link biodiversity, management practices, and productivity. Before diving the presentation, I'd like to invite each of our speakers to briefly introduce themselves, just one or two sentences so everyone knows who's in the room. So please, we're going to start with Professor Gores.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here with you. I'm George Goras from the Agricultural University of Athens and the Lab of Sericulture and Apiculture. And later I will present you our findings according to pollination, bees mainly, and things that we believe that are very important to share with you. I'm very happy to be here today.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo.
Hi, Metaxia, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lorenzo Tramacere, a research associate at the University of Pisa. I'm an agronomist, and our research is specialized in agroecological practices, and I'm working on the VALERECO project.
Thank you very
Thank you
much,
for inviting me
Lorenzo.
to present some insight from our field trial. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo. Next, we're having Alexandros.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Metaxia. My name is Alexandros Tataridas. I'm from Greece. I'm working as assistant researcher at the University of Coimbra in Portugal in the FAST team, Forum for Agroecological Studies and Transitions, and I'm the scientific project manager of the GOOD project. And I will present you some preliminary insights from our cowpea trials in Portugal. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexandros, for the introduction. And Yannis?
Hello, I am Ioannis Gazoulis, and I will present you an overall output regarding some interesting cause-effect relationships I have spotted in the field trials of some field trials of the two projects. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much all for the brief introduction. Our first presentation is by Lorenzo Tramacere from University of Pisa, titled Diversified Legume System to Leverage Ecosystem Services. And Lorenzo is going to present results from field trials exploring how intercropping, cover crops, and management diversity can influence soil fertility with suppression and yield stability. So, Lorenzo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Metaxia. And yes, today my presentation will focus on how diversification can help us leverage ecosystem services for legume production, in particular under our condition that are mostly rain-fed condition, at least in our context in Italy. So, next slide, Metaxia, thank you.
You can move on the slide. So with yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
You're welcome. No worries.
So, to tackle against the climate change and the high environmental impact of agriculture, our food systems need, I would say, a redesign that will prioritize ecological processes. Agroecology could provide us this framework indeed. For example, provide us use agroecology help us to increase the diversity in space, such as use the intercropping, and diversity in time, considering rotations and cover crops. Practices that help unlock service like soil fertility with suppression and resilience to this variable weather context. Legumes are central for this approach because they fix nitrogen, support microbial communities, and can stabilize performance across seasons. VALERECO project, in one of the two projects that are presented today, is a project that builds and shares evidence based on legume-driven ecosystem services co-developed with farmers through the establishment of living labs, and where we test practices in real condition and capture which strategy actually works and could be scaled also at farm level. We are also building a digital hub where these data, protocol, and case studies are could be easy to access and compare. To summarize, this project will promote legume crops for sustainable farming and enhance biodiversity across Europe by supporting farmers in adopting these beneficial crops. Going to our field trial in Pisa, in November 2024, we established a 3-year rain-fed experiment at the Center for Agri-Environmental Research Enrico Avanzi of the University of Pisa on a clay loam soil. I will say, let's say it's a strong test bed because considering weather condition, rainfall variability is real in our context, mostly in the last year. So to tackle against is a good, I say, test bed to start testing some practices that help us to increase the resilience of our fields. Our objective is to quantify both amount of and quality of ecosystem services provided by legume-based systems, focusing on, in the context of VALERECO, chickpea and hairy vetch. Chickpea is a green legume that is a valuable source of high-quality proteins for human consumption and was traditionally cultivated in the past. It should be reintroduced here into our agroecosystems, and we hope through an improved cultivation techniques and promote into the market to diversify our crop rotations. Vetch, it's a very versatile crop that produces high-quality forage, and this is also used as cover crop. It is well adapted to our pedoclimatic condition and provides excellent soil coverage, produces abundant biomass, and fixes a large amount of nitrogen. So we use two-factor randomized complete block design with 3 replication. In our trial, the first factor is the crop rotation, where we compare legume-based and non-legume-based rotations, and the cultural management, which span a range of strategy like soil crops with and without weeding, intercropping, no-till on cover crop dead mulch, or green manure with tillage plus weed control, and a situation in no-till without preceding cover crop. And as you can see in the figure, chickpea plots are splitted into the subplots, into two subplots, each sown with two different varieties to address the intercropping also concerning the chickpea. And in the next slide, we will see some preliminary results from the first year of the trial. Okay. Here we have the grain yield of chickpea averaged over the two chickpea cultivars and under the 6 crop management systems. And as you can see in the graph, although we did not detect any cultivar by system interaction, intercropping was the only system with yields not significantly different from the treatment A, which includes the post-sowing weed control. These preliminary results highlight the importance of the integrated crop and weed management to optimize chickpea yields under rain-fed conditions. And among the strategies we tested, although these are just preliminary results, intercropping stands out as a sustainable option that helps maintain yield stability and improve resource use efficiency. Considering the preceding crop for chickpea, we used Camelina sativa, and this cover crop is a Brassicacia and produced contrasting outcomes for us. In the system E, where the cover crop was incorporated into the soil, weed control was comparable to other treatments. But we suspect that there is the possibility to a glucosinolate-mediated inhibition of chickpea germination. We observed this monitoring the field, but we haven't data to support this assumption until now. And in the system D, roller crimped residues did not persist long enough, and this limited mat formation meant insufficient soil cover, higher weed pressure, and lower yields. The practical message here is that with this kind of cover, using Brassica covers, biomass and termination method are decisive. Indeed, probably after biomass incorporation, there is a right time to wait before sowing chickpea, and we will assess it as a further step in our trial. Okay, concerning the other crop which we focus in the project, we also evaluated vetch and barley as control ground, as monocultures, and as 264 mixtures, one barley dominant and one vetch dominant. Within the intercropping treatment, we and also among all the treatment, we showed no clear productivity or weed suppression advantage. But considering the nutritional point of view, because the aim for this production is forage, the mixture can deliver a more balanced feed, fiber from cereals and protein from legume. This balance support animal performance while diversifying also the risk production. So even when biomass is similar, functional value can still justify the use of mixtures at farm scale. Okay, here I want just to introduce briefly another diversification practices in the system C, the intercropping system. Within during wheat rotation, we started to evaluate two agroecological different two practices. Two crops species, I would say, by overseeding in different plot, subterranean clover and red clover, into the grain at tillering. So sowing this crop into the grain at tillering phase. And we observed a poor establishment of the subterranean clover, likely due to the competition and timing of the sowing that was a bit problematic due to the waterlogging during the winter in our fields. And red clover, by contrast, achieved excellent ground cover and produced high late summer biomass, contributing to soil protection and competitive weed suppression. The key here is the execution. Sowing wind of seedbed and early light competition often could drive outcomes more than the species name on the seedbed. And we have to consider anyway that although they are legumes, they have different behavior and cycle, because trifoliate the subterranean clover is a self-reseeding annual species, and while the red clover is a biennial species. Okay, and going to the conclusion and the take-home messages from this first experience in this trial. We can say that diversity works when it's designed and managed through right species choice, proportion, termination, and also residue handling must align with goals to unlock ecosystem services and stabilize performance. Intercropping is a practical pathway to sustainability. It can maintain yields while improving resource use efficiency and also in the if the goals is the forage for the feed balance. Under rain-fed condition, integrated crop weed management is essential to prioritize prevention and crop competition over reactive control and match practices to cultivar traits. Finally, the plan for multi-year learning is pivotal in a context of climate variability that demands resilient, flexible, more flexible systems. Next, more specifically, we will test whether camelina's effect is truly allelopathic or primarily microclimatic through a dedicated trial in a controlled condition, and we'll try to adjust residue management to secure a more persistent mulch. We will refine also the overseeding protocol for subterranean clover, trying to adjust the sowing window and the sowing timing, I will say, and the seedbed to improve a better and earlier cover of the soil. And we will validate this insight over the remaining season, continue sharing and discuss protocols within our living labs. Thank you for your kind attention.
Many thanks, Lorenzo, for sharing these results. And also, as you mentioned, it's the first experimental year, so the following years we are going to have more robust results. We're going to take questions by the end of all the presentations. So now we're going to continue with Professor Goras presenting pollination of legumes and ecosystem services provided by bees. So please go ahead. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation again and the opportunity to present our findings. My presentation is titled, as Metaxia said, Pollination of Legumes as an Ecosystem Services Provided by Bees. So we are focusing on pollination. This is a service that bees provide for free, and it is known to be essential for human life. It is known that of the 1,400 cultivated plants worldwide, 80% of them require pollination. These plants produce essential food and plant-based industrial products. More than 50% of the world's production of fats and oils comes from plants that require pollination. Also, 87.5% of flowering plants, which means more than 300,000 species, benefit from animal pollination. And to European Union, 84% of crops benefit from pollinations, which is made mainly by bees. In this research, we focused on the pollination services provided by bees on legumes. The experiments were conducted at the Agricultural University of Athens during the spring and summer of 2025. For this, two laboratories collaborated, the Lab of Agronomy and Mr. Travros' team, and the Laboratory of Sericulture and Apiculture under my supervision, where we examined the pollination effects on field pea, faba bean, lentil, and sula. We set three different plots in every case, in which we had a sole crop with mechanical weeding, sole crop without extra weeding, and then intercropping without weeding. There we recorded the visitation of bees, Apis mellifera, and other insects depending on the crop. Also, we wanted to explore the effect of pollination on plant growth and yield. For this, in every plot, we establish a specialized cage, like this, which enclosed part of the crop into which pollinating insects could not enter. The dimensions of the cage were 1 meter in each side of the square. The net that was used provided 95% light transmission, and it was inaccessible to insects pollinators, as I have mentioned. Establishing this experimental design, we were able to study the effect of pollination on plant growth and yield, comparing the crop in and out of the cage, and to measure pollinators' preferences according to agricultural handling. To estimate bee preferences, we studied the no-cage portion of each plot. For this, over there, we check over there. For these measurements, one observer every day at the same time counted for 5 minutes each plot. The observer recorded the number of bees on the crop, the time spent visiting the crop plant, the number of other insects on the crop, the number of other insects on weeds, time spent visiting the crop and the time spent visiting weeds. Our purpose was to record the preferences of bees depending on the presence or absence of weeds or intercropping, and the effect of pollination on plant growth and yield. The first results that I'm going to present to you for now are the preliminary results focusing on Vicia faba. The experiment took place from early April to June, and the study to bee preferences lasted 47 days from the beginning of the crop blossom to the end. In Vicia faba, we had two treatments, a sole crop with mechanical weeding, no weeds, and a sole crop without extra weeding, which means that we have more weeds there. As you can see in the first table, the average number of bees visiting the plots per day was almost twice as much in the absence of winds. Approximately one bee per day in 5 minutes that the observer counted, one bee visited the faba when there were no weeds, while almost half of them preferred the plot without extra weeding. Regarding the time that spent on plants, there were no statistically significant differences among the different treatments. Each bee spent almost 6, something more than 6, and 5 seconds with and without weeding, respectively. So, our first conclusion is that the presence of weeds seems to reduce the number of bees that visit the crop, but has no effect on the time spent. Regarding the crop yield and related parameters, we harvested crops in each plot with or without pollination and compared these parameters within and outside the cage. The parameters measured were the plant height, pods per plant, seeds per pod, seeds per plant, crop weight, crop seeds weight, and plant density. As you can see, regardless of weed presence, here we have no weeds, bees and no bees, and weeds, bees and no bees. Regardless of weeds presence, the presence of bees and the pollination services seems to increase the number of critical crop parameters. I can give you some interesting points here on this table. The plant produced 9.5 and 13 almost pods after pollination, while inside the cage, the pods were fewer than 3, 2.9 and 2.1. Also, after pollination, the number of seeds per pod was more than 3.5 here and here, whereas in unpollinated pods it was less than 2.2, 1.3 here. In parallel, the number of seeds per plant now was 35 and 38 due to the bees, whereas without bees it decreased to almost 11 and 5. The crop weight was also statistically significantly higher after pollination. We can see here 362 grams and 545 here, while the weight was less than 200 in cage due to no pollination. And finally, the crop seed weight was also greater under pollination, 116 and 174 here, while there was a significant reduction in production in the absence of bees. You can see here 40 and 12 only grams of crop seeds. Our first results indicated, also I have to mention that there were no statistical differences in quality parameters among the treatments. I mean, here and here there were no differences, and also here and here no differences according to bees. So our first results indicate that the presence of bees in legume plants, or at least on the plants that we have studied so far, increase the number of pods per plant, seeds per pod, seeds per plant, crop weight, and crop seeds weight. And also the presence of weeds reduces the number of bees that visit the crop, but has no effect on the time spent. These findings support the fact that bees and pollination in general are essential for the crop production in legumes, as in most cultivated plants. Beekeepers, I believe, and I always is something that I support strongly, beekeepers can collaborate with the farmers for mutual benefits. On this point, I would like to thank you for your time and interest, and I would also like to thank the collaboration of both laboratories of the university for the experimental design, but also the implementation of the measurements. Thank you.
Many thanks for your interesting presentation and results. There are more results to coming from this experiment.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And I think we can move on to Portugal with Alexandros presenting preliminary soil health insights in cowpea trials in Portugal. So Alexandros, over to you.
Thank you very much, Metaxia. Zepalo is sending his apologies. He could not join eventually. So I'm presenting instead of him, on behalf of him, actually. So I will present you some results from our living lab in Portugal for the GOOD project. We are dealing with cowpea, and our goal is to reduce the weed pressure by adopting agroecological weed management practices. You can see a picture of the field, and you can see vegetation and no vegetation. So that's a picture with a lot of meanings behind this, and I will explain later. So just a brief introduction to what we did in the first experimental year, because now we already completed the second experimental year. My colleague, Els Winstra, presented in the first part of this webinar series with VALERECO, and I want now to thank a lot the coordinator, Elias Travlos, and you, Metaxia, for the collaboration between the two projects. That's a great initiative. So in the first year, we tested 3 different cover crops as single species and mixtures. And we found out that a mixture of 6 different species performed better and gave much better results in terms of weed suppression, but also in terms of the ecosystem services that they deliver back to the agroecosystem. So this year and next year, we already did, and we plan to complete for a second consecutive year, sowing of a mixture of 6 cover crops, inoculated and non-inoculated with mycorrhiza, native mycorrhiza. The team of the University of Pisa, Alessandra Turini and her team did a great job preparing an inoculant that is applied before sowing. We call it a pre-sowing seed coating protocol. So in this mixture of 6 species, you can see that rye, oat, and flax were inoculated with mycorrhiza, and all species were sown at the same time. And here you can see the experimental design. We're talking about 3 blocks: cover crop inoculated, non-inoculated, and the control. And in the colors, you can see 3 different termination methods for the cover crops. And we have tillage, roller crimper, and chain mower. So actually, we wanted to compare 2 intermediate conservation tillage mechanical practices, roller crimper and chain mower, and the creation of a thick mulch with tillage, so soil disturbance. And what is the impact of these practices in the agronomic performance of cowpea as the cash crop, in the weed suppression, but also soil health indicators. So you can see many different in this small like sizes, circles and squares and triangles, what we measured. Today, I will present you just some results that came out of the soil lab of Zé Paulo Souza and handled by a master student, Lucio Paiva. So this is a picture of the field. You can see how the blocks are arranged in the field and the different practices. And going straight to some images, you can see how the inoculant and the seed coating looks like. And it's a very promising practice, actually. So for this experiment, we use the seed driller. We try to minimize soil disturbance, especially in the roller crimper and the chain mower plots. And you can see how it looks like. You can see in roller crimper, there is a very thick mulch that is produced that doesn't allow weeds to germinate. So we have more than 90% suppression in some plots, but it is uniform across the entire experimental design. But cowpea faces problems there. I will explain later. Chain mower gives some space to cowpea to grow, but weeds are also there, but not many. But tillage gives space to cowpea to grow, but also weeds thrive there. So we have a trade-off. Some preliminary results from the inoculation. The inoculation reduces weed biomass by approximately 40% at the peak of the growing season of the cover crops, and about 70% at the initial stage. So we saw that it gives this boost at the very first growth stages of the cover crops, which is supposed to increase the cover crop competitiveness against weeds. So we have better cover crop coverage of the soil. We want to promote a diversified strategy. So for this mixture, we use short cycle brassicas. Legumes can also be used as we use lupin, but also cereals, because each one of them offers a specific and different service to our management plan. And as a result of this, we can say that the combination of species with complementary growth cycles maximizes soil occupation throughout the growing season, reduces periods of bare soil, and limits weed emergence. I'm not going into details because these are topics that will be covered by hopefully subsequent webinars. Moving to the next slide, I think that there is an overlapping in with the graphics of the background, but no problem. This is the indication of the total biodiversity using the Shannon index, combining plants and mesofauna 1 month after cover crop sowing. So this is a result from a sampling campaign from last December 24. You can see that the inoculation of the cover crops combined with roller crimper gave higher biodiversity, both for plants and mesofauna. About mesofauna and macrofauna, we measured earthworms, mites, and Collembola. I will present these results to you today. But if you have any questions, I would kindly ask you to write them in the chat because I will have to ask our experts in the team. One second, change to slides. About the total diversity 1, 3, and 4 months after the cover crop sowing, it is obvious that roller crimper gave the best results in terms of highest diversity. So this is a result that is very promising for roller crimper, but the trade-off is that cowpea didn't produce so much biomass. I don't present these results because these were presented in the previous webinar, and you can go on YouTube or VALERECO channel and check it. About the total weeds and cover crops biomass and these results, we have some practical interpretation and recommendations. So inoculation did not consistently reduce weed biomass or increase that of cover crops 4 months after sowing, so a couple of weeks before the termination. But combined with the mechanical treatments, we can recommend that we have to optimize the termination treatments because this is the main determinant for this observed variability before applying the inoculation of the cover crops with mycorrhiza. You can check on the GOOD website our practice abstracts. Some results are already appearing there. And if you have any questions, we are happy to address them. And going now to the soil health insights, this is a map, a heat map, showing the earthworms in the field. This is a qualitative representation of these results, but also quantified. And this was a very extensive soil campaign that targeted earthworms, mites, and collembola. So about the abundance of earthworms and how earthworms were affected by the three different cover crop termination practices, we can say that the chain mower produced a thick mulch that created a humid environment that was rich in organic matter, giving favorable conditions to macrofauna. Roller crimper caused lodging that favored some hotspots, and it was obvious, it was visible in some plots, but compressed soil in other plots, resulting in variability similar to that of chain mower. And finally, tillage and the ploughing destroyed part of the populations of earthworms, but offered similar conditions throughout the plot after the operation. So as a conclusion for the earthworms and the practices, we saw that chain mower is most effective because roller crimper offers high local peaks, but also poor plots. About collembola, we saw that chain mower created a mulch that was a stable habitat for springtails for collembola in most plots. Roller crimper provided microhabitats, but the compression limited populations in plots that are poorer in organic matter. And these are other physicochemical results that are not presented here. Tillage exposed organic matter in some blocks due to the disturbance and created hostile environments in others. So there was variability. So roller crimper maintained the intermediate populations, and for collembola, roller crimper gave the most promising results. About mites, the chain mower and the mulch created humid microhabitats that favor the population and some surges in specific plots. Roller crimper gave a mulch that preserved humidity, but the slight compaction limited the population range. And tillage disturbed the surface habitat, reducing mite density and variability. So again, roller crimper resulted in moderate but more homogeneous populations of mites. I'm not going into the correlations. I think that I'm out of time. You can see the correlations later on in the recorded video. And I will try to close with some aggregated results from the three practices, but also the innovation of the inoculation with mycorrhiza. And I am putting some boxes. And you can see that roller crimper had the highest Shannon index, and earthworms and mites were equally high in both practices of chain mower and roller crimper compared to tillage. So tillage is not good for the soil meso and macrofauna. But this does not reinvent the wheel, of course. And finally, the inoculation gave very promising results, and this will be combined with some other analysis that the University of Pisa will do to see if this practice can support cover crops to perform better and reduce the weed pressure. Simultaneously, preserving and restoring soil health indicators. So I'm closing with this. The chain mower produces a mulch layer on the soil with minimal disturbance, and it's good for late season weeds. For early season weeds, sorry, but late season weeds may appear because the biomass may start declining. Roller crimper physically presses down the plants, reducing early season biomass, but not completely preventing regrowth. And tillage buries the seeds, but the weeds thrive when the conditions are optimal after February and March, if we are talking about winter cover crops in our case. So, as an overall conclusion, high disturbance in tillage gives rapid production of our crops and cover crops, but we have lower diversity than other practices. The roller crimper and an intermediate disturbance offers higher diversity of plants and other meso macrofauna, but also more weeds. And low disturbance with chain mower gives a balance between weed suppression and promotion of soil fauna. Thank you.
Many thanks, Alex, for sharing these findings. And our final speaker is Yannis from Agricultural University of Athens, presenting overall cause-effect relationship in both projects. So, Yannis, the stage is yours.
So, hello everyone. I'm going to do a presentation regarding some cause-effect relationships, like to identify some correlations between studied parameters in our field trials we have established in both projects. We can start, Metaxia, with the first one, the first case, which comes from the second experimental year in Latvia fields in the conventional farming system, where we can see we have as a dependent variable the biomass of the crop of pea, and on the other side we have as an independent variable the biomass of weeds. As we see, there was not a high and strong correlation, a high percentage of correlation between the two variables, but it was fitted to a third polynomial regression to maximize R squared value. But as we see, I have highlighted this one red bullet, the biggest bullet, which corresponds to experimental units where there was a cover crop growing with inoculation, and then the pea crop received also biostimulant application. And this bullet, I want to emphasize that we see that although wheat biomass has a high value, which is above 100 grams per square meter, even in this case, the biomass of the crop is also very high, receiving its highest value, indicating probably that the application of the biostimulant in a trial unit, in a plot where the cover crop has been grown, has a better improved tolerance to weed competition and can actually produce good amount of biomass. And I haven't analyzed yet the data of the yields, because I'm waiting some more results of them to complete my analysis. But I think that it will be validated also in the grain yield measurements. We can proceed to the next one. Again, the biomass of the crop of rye is good biomass production, even in plots with very high pressure from weeds, but we could expect that because rye is a very competitive crop, much more competitive than pea. We can go to the next one, Metaxia. So this is a case from Serbia, where I fitted the power model to analyze the data. I have pulled the data from all cover crops, since they had close amounts of biomass in these plots from the first experimental year in the conventionally grown maize. The cover crops did not have many significant differences, but they all had better weed suppression during the active growth stage of the cover crop than the non-cover crop plots. But between them, there were not so many differences. So I could pull the data overall, the cover crops regarding the biomass, and see that there was a negative relationship with the biomass of weeds later, when the maize plants were actually in the field. We go for the organic one now. For the organic one, the correlation between the two study parameters was stronger, and indicating that cover crop biomass is a very good indicator in some cases to explain variability in weed biomass. And then we finish with a good project cause-effect relationship, and we can go to the VALERECO one to go in the lentil crops. In the lentil crop, where we had two different cultivars with Samos, we expected it to be more competitive compared to Dimitra. Samos has a larger seed size compared to Dimitra here in Greece. But although the value of yields indicate that it's more productive and a bit more competitive, lentil in general, this chart shows that lentil has poor competitive ability to weeds, and it's the importance of weed management is one of the milestones to achieve yields, because almost is more than 80% of variability in grain yield in highly infested plots with very competitive weeds, and especially broadleaf weeds as wild mustard or other broadleafs which develop a deep taproot and shade the ground. The variability in grain yield can be accurately explained by the production of weed biomass. And then we can go to the next one with a crop which is we continue also with the crude protein, and now this is different chart, like I'm trying to express the different treatments from 1 to 5 as the level of intensity that increases, because TAF 1 is untreated control, TAF 2 and TAF 3 are the intermediate ones where we have one more intervention, either mechanical control, either intercropping. But in treatment 4 we also have cover cropping, which requires much more intensity, given that we need to first establish the cover crop, then terminate it. And then we have in treatment 5 plots, we have even more intensity of treatments because we have cover cropping, and on top we perform some mechanical operations between the crop rows, before canopy closure. And we see that as the intensity of treatments of weed control intensifies in this low competitive crop, the crude protein of the seed can be maximized, and there is an important effect of the cultivar. And we mean that the more competitive cultivar as Samos can somehow exploit a bit better this intensity of weed control compared to another cultivar that has lower competitive ability. We can go now to Sula, the second legume we study in the living lab of Greece for VALERECO project, where we see that there is a strong relationship again between wheat biomass and Sula production and Sula stem dry matter yields. But even in the plots where wheat infestation is highest, the reduction in stem yields is not so high. The effects of competition are not so detrimental as in the case with lentils or other crops as chickpea with poor plant height and poor competitiveness. But in any case, especially during the year of the establishment, the Sula should be clean from weeds to be able to reach the phenological stage, to be able to shade the ground between the rows. We see the picture on the right with intercropping with wheat, and also another time a quality trait, the seed oil content of this multi-purpose crop can be affected from wheat biomass, and this can be expected that the effect on this parameter is stronger than the stem, because the plants can develop and produce biomass, but they demand much more energy and nutrients to also increase the size of the seed and the oil and its oil content as well. So even crops that have in general high competitive ability, they also do need some weed management practices to establish good. These were some results. I'm gonna find out more as both the project continue, and I hope that in some crops that have common characteristics, we can do some cross-project comparisons probably. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you very much, Yannis, and thanks to all our speakers for the insightful presentations. We will move on to the questions. Please feel free to type your question in the chat and we can read them out to the speakers. So take your time. You can also raise your hand as far as I can see. Are there any questions to our speakers and the presentations? So maybe we can kick off the discussion with some of the few questions that we have prepared for our speakers. And please feel free to add your own in the chat and we can go. So Lorenzo, we have a question. Based on your findings, how do these diversified systems balance productivity with ecological resilience?
Yes, Metaxia is a very good question. It's a key question for this kind of systems and I would say agroecological systems. Now we have to keep the balance between the increasing yield while you reduce the impact, no, and increase the ecological way of our system. So it depends because there are a lot of answers for this question. For example, considering the intercropping, yes, maybe we can maintain stable production in time, no, but maybe not so high every year, but stable, reducing the external input and spend less money, for example, to supply fertilizers and for example, reducing the cost for the mechanical weeding. Anyway, there are also other considerations that we can do, for example, in a system where we insert legume crops, or again, in the perspective to reduce the external input, we know that crop like vetch, for example, could potentially provide a lot of nitrogen for the subsequent crop, and also in this case we can reduce the supplying of fertilizers. In a considering in a overall way the diversification, so increase the number of the crop in the crop rotation, we can break the cycle, frequently the cycle of weed and pest, and in this way reduce the use of chemical and maybe in this kind of system we don't reach the most high yield that we think, but we can balance. We can balance this reducing of the external input, maintaining a good production. For example, there are another thing that I have in my mind now concerning the intercropping. We can use the fact that the crops help each other. Yes, there are competition also within the intercropping, but there are also facilitation. For example, when we crop a cereal like wheat with a legume like lentil can sustain not only from the nutrient point of view, but can sustain wheat also mechanically. No, for example, reducing I don't remember the word in English. The knee when the wheat go down for example caused by the wind. So there are a lot of answers for this this question, and we can choose where we have to address the answer, but we have a lot of possibility, and the thing that give us give us a solution, also give from that another point of view a more complexity in our system and difficulties for the farmers. But this kind of project like VALERECO and GOODS help us just to try with the farmer to exploit the advantages and reducing the problems together. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo, for your response. And I can see that one question just came in. It's for Professor Goras. What about the role of legumes in attracting pollinators? Which is the opinion of Professor Goras? Do they actively contribute a lot compared to other crops?
Yes,
So, yeah, thank you very
I have seen the question and I'm very happy because it gives me the opportunity to discuss about this. Okay, we know that legumes are positive for most of the pollinators. Many legumes plants attract bees that find food in their flowers. The quantities of nectar and pollen may not be large enough in many cases in order to produce honey for the beekeeper, but they can help to feed the bees. And that's why I believe it's very important. This situation benefits the beekeeper, but on the other hand, for the farmer, as we have found in this research, the presence of bees, especially in legumes, as we have seen, can significantly increase the production. So, if I have to answer especially on these questions, yes, legumes are in general positive and they help a lot the bees. If we compare it mostly with wheat, rice, and corn, which are not attractive to bees, legumes are something that beekeepers want to find these crops and put their colonies there. And I believe that it's important to collaborate, as I said, farmers and beekeepers for this reason. Both of them can have a mutual effect, positive effect on colonies and on crops also.
It's a nice takeaway message. Thank you very much for those very thoughtful reflections.
Mhm.
Any more questions? I think we're running also out of time, right? So We have time for one brief question, if there is any. Okay, Alexandros, yeah?
I would not like to ask a question, but I wanted to highlight something that has been recently published, and it's coming from the hands of Yannis. It's an amazing positioning on weeds, because now we are talking about weeds and the trade-offs and the cost-benefit analysis and all these ecosystem services. And Yannis is talking about service weeds, if I'm not mistaken. So in agroecosystems, probably we need to open this dialogue again. And for the first time, this discussion, what is the role of weeds and how we can accept some weeds and suffer some losses, but at the same time, have all these ecosystem services that may bring into the system. So it's a matter of redesigning agroecologically the landscape and the agroecosystems. That would be very good basis for the next discussion, maybe.
If I can add on this point, I think it's very good question and something we have to discuss because, as I said, some weeds on Beach of Aba didn't affect positive to attract bees, but this is on the side of crop. On the other hand, for the beekeeper and basically for the bees, the presence of weeds is significant, as we have seen, because they can supply a variety of pollen, which is the protein for bees. We don't need to have only one kind of pollen. So on my side, for discussing about bees, it's very important the presence of weeds, because they can help very much for the nutrition of the bees. This is something that I have to add to the discussion here. And of course, everything interesting that you have already mentioned.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. Thank you very much. So I think we come end of our time. So I'd like to sincerely thank all speakers and for their contributions and all the participants for joining today. This session highlighted how legumes, through their multiple ecosystem services from nitrogen fixation and pollination to soil biodiversity, can truly drive agroecological transformation. For any questions that we didn't manage to address, feel free to reach out after the webinar to our speakers. And also the webinar will be uploaded to the YouTube channel of VALERECO project and perhaps GOOD as well. So thank you very much for your time, and we wish you a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Enjoy.
much for the
Bye.
invitation.
Stay in touch. Stay in touch. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.